My name is Claire. I'm 18 years old, and this is how I took revenge on my sister after she deleted my Harvard application email, thinking she had destroyed my future. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, in the same childhood bedroom I'd grown up in, staring at the screen of my old laptop. My inbox was empty, completely empty. No new notifications, no spam, nothing. Just a blinking cursor and a growing pit in my stomach. It was supposed to come that day. Harvard had already sent out decisions for early admission. I knew it. Everyone on the college forums had gotten theirs. I kept refreshing, searching, closing the tab, opening it again. Nothing. I thought maybe it was a glitch, or maybe I'd just built it all up too much in my head. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Then, like clockwork, my older sister Rachel walked past my door, smug, slow, calculated. She didn't even glance at me, just tossed her voice back with that fake casual tone she always used when she wanted to twist the knife. Maybe you're just not that special. I didn't respond. I didn't even look up. My body was frozen, but inside, everything started to unravel. Rachel always had this way of making me feel small, and I hated that even now, at the most important moment of my life, she still had that kind of power over me. I tried to stay calm, to breathe, to convince myself that maybe I had just been rejected, and that was the end of it. Maybe Harvard wasn't meant to be. But in the back of my mind, something kept whispering, check the trash folder. 3 days went by. I couldn't sleep. I barely ate. My hands were shaking as I finally opened my email trash folder. And there it was. The subject line hit me like a punch to the chest. Congratulations. Welcome to the Harvard class of 2029. Time stamped exactly when I knew it should have come. Deleted. On purpose. I sat there staring at the screen, numb. My hands went cold. My vision blurred. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My sister had gone into my email and deleted the one thing I had worked for my entire life. And she did it with a smile on her face. Claire had always been the quiet one, focused, the kind of girl teachers loved and classmates forgot to invite to parties. Growing up in a working-class corner of Connecticut, she learned early that success wasn't handed out, it had to be carved from the bone. Her mother, a night shift nurse, came home smelling like antiseptic and fatigue. And her father juggled 2 jobs like he was afraid if he stopped moving, the whole house would collapse. Claire didn't complain. She kept her head down and worked harder. It was the only way she knew how to keep things from unraveling. Rachel, her older sister by 4 years, had always been the wild card, where Claire brought home straight A's and honor roll certificates. Rachel scraped by and came home angry. Angry at the world, angry at their parents, and most of all angry at Claire. I always thought family was supposed to protect you, Claire would later say, the memory bitter on her tongue. But Rachel, she never really saw me as her sister. From the outside, their family looked tight-knit, even functional. But inside, Claire spent her childhood walking on eggshells. Every good grade, every gold star, felt like an accusation Rachel couldn't answer. It wasn't Claire's fault that she was good at school, but it became her burden anyway. If I did well, it made her feel worse, she would confess, years later. So Claire learned to hide her successes. She stopped showing off her report cards, stopped celebrating her wins. But she never stopped dreaming. Harvard had always been the goal, not just for the name or the prestige, but for the door it represented. A way out, a way up. Claire would study in the dim light of the kitchen at 1 a.m. while her dad's alarm clock buzzed upstairs. She worked weekends at the diner down the road, her fingers calloused from carrying plates and her mind sharp from memorizing facts between shifts. Her friends went to football games and dances. Claire built a future alone. She trusted no one to take care of that dream but herself. Except naively, she never changed the password to her family email. It had been hers since she was 12, and she still used it for updates on college applications. It never occurred to her that anyone would touch it, least of all Rachel. "I didn't think she'd ever cross a line like that," Claire said. "Not with something like this." Rachel had flamed out of college after 2 semesters, drifting back home like a thundercloud that never left, bitter and restless. She picked fights over nothing and slammed doors like punctuation marks. By the time Claire's senior year rolled around, Rachel was still living in the guest room, watching TV in her pajamas at 2 p.m. and complaining about how nobody appreciated her. And Claire, despite all the miles she'd put between them emotionally, still hoped for some kind of peace. She still thought blood meant something. Then the email came. Harvard. Subject line: "Congratulations." Claire opened it in the school library, her hands trembling. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat there, breathing in the moment. She'd worked for her entire life. That night, she came home quiet, scared to let even that happiness loose in the house. She didn't tell anyone, not even her parents. She wanted to wait until the letter came in the mail, something she could hold, something that would make it real. But Rachel knew. 2 days later, Claire logged into the email again, and the message was gone. Deleted. She panicked, then checked the trash. Empty. She checked sent messages and saw something worse. A reply. Short. Cold. "Thank you for your time, but I've decided to withdraw my application." Rachel had known the password. She'd known. Claire felt her stomach drop, her ears ring. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was sabotage. The one thing she thought no one could touch had been torn apart from the inside, and all she could hear, through the haze of shock, was Rachel's voice in the next room, laughing at something on TV. Claire never said what she did next, not out loud, but something shifted that day. The quiet girl with the focused eyes learned just how far someone could fall without making a sound, and from that silence, something else began to grow, something colder. Not revenge, exactly, but resolve. Claire had earned every inch of that dream, and no one, not even her sister, was going to take it away from her. Not again. Claire didn't confront Rachel with fireworks. She never did. That wasn't her way. Instead, she waited until the house was quiet late Saturday morning, their parents still asleep after long shifts. Rachel was in the kitchen, pouring cereal like she didn't have a care in the world. Claire stood in the doorway, clutching the edge of the table to keep her hands steady. "Have you been on my laptop?" she asked, her voice almost too soft to be heard. Rachel didn't even turn round. "Why would I want your nerd crap?" she muttered, still crunching cereal between her teeth. Claire stepped closer. "I mean it. Did you go into my email?" Rachel finally turned, eyes narrowed, a smirk already forming like a reflex. "If you didn't get in, it's not my fault. You're not good enough." Claire's chest tightened. She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out the printed copy she'd made the night before, evidence. The deleted email, the withdrawal message, the timestamp. She laid it on the table in front of Rachel, trembling but unflinching. "You sent this," she said. "You went into my account and replied. You deleted the original offer. Rachel didn't flinch, didn't apologize. She stared at the paper for half a second, then shrugged like it was nothing. "It's not like it matters," she said, sipping her milk with an exaggerated slurp. "It's too late now, right?" Claire stood frozen. It wasn't the betrayal itself that left her hollow, it was how casual Rachel was about it. No remorse, no shame, just this cold, detached satisfaction, as if ruining Claire's future was just another petty win in a lifelong sibling rivalry. "I worked my entire life for that," Claire said, her voice breaking. "And you?" She stopped. There was no point. Rachel wasn't listening. She never had. From upstairs, their dad's alarm clock buzzed. Their mom's footsteps moved down the hallway. And Claire knew no one was going to fix this for her. Their parents were so used to the two of them fighting that they wouldn't even register this as something different, as something dangerous, as sabotage. That afternoon, Claire called the Harvard admissions office from the public library, her hands shaking as she left message after message. "There's been a mistake," she said, over and over again. "Please call me back. I need to speak with someone." But it was a weekend. Offices were closed. No one answered. She checked her phone every hour anyway, heart leaping at every buzz. But it was never them. "I felt powerless," Claire would later say. "And I hated that." She knew it. She spent the rest of the day moving through the house like a ghost, numb and raw. Her parents didn't notice. Rachel made a show of being cheerful, humming off-key in the living room. Every note felt like a knife. But by nightfall, something inside Claire began to shift. It wasn't grief. It wasn't even rage. It was focus, sharp, surgical, the kind that settled behind her eyes and refused to leave. Rachel thought she'd won. She thought deleting an email could erase everything Claire had worked for. But she hadn't counted on one thing. Claire wasn't finished. "If she wanted to ruin me," Claire thought, staring at the ceiling in the dark, "she should have made sure I was finished." Claire hit the ground running Monday morning. The moment the admissions office opened, she was on the phone. Her voice trembled, but she kept her words precise. She explained everything: how she received the acceptance email, how it had been deleted, how someone had responded in her name to decline the offer. There was a pause on the other end of the line, then disbelief. The woman on the phone asked for proof. Claire didn't hesitate. She sent screenshots of the reply, email login history, time stamps, anything that could show them this wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a violation. "We'll review this internally," they told her, "but we can't make any guarantees." Claire hung up, both hopeful and hollow. She knew how systems worked. She knew people didn't like mess. She wasn't just asking for a second chance, she was asking them to believe her over a situation that sounded almost impossible. But she had no choice. She couldn't let it end like this. Meanwhile, Rachel began her own campaign. She went to their parents with half-truths and smug sighs, painting Claire as paranoid and unstable. "She's been really intense lately," Rachel said over dinner, voice thick with feigned concern. "Like, obsessed. She keeps accusing me of things. I think she's just stressed about college or whatever." Their mother frowned, clearly exhausted. Their father barely looked up from his plate. Claire tried to speak, to explain, but every time she did, it just sounded like noise. They were used to the sisters fighting. To them, this was more of the same, just Claire acting out again. That made it worse. The betrayal didn't just come from Rachel. It came from the silence of the people around her. Claire found herself alone in her own house, surrounded by people who refused to see what was right in front of them. She stopped sleeping properly. Her grades started to slip. Teachers asked if she was okay, and she smiled through the ache in her chest. All the while, she kept checking her email, waiting for a reply that didn't come. Then, one night, Claire found something else. She'd started going back through everything: old school logins, saved drafts, her email archive, trying to piece together a full picture of what Rachel might have seen or touched. That's when she discovered forwarded messages, college essays, recommendation letters, even her high school login information, all sent to an unfamiliar email address. A closer look revealed it was one of Rachel's backup accounts. Claire's blood went cold. Rachel hadn't just sabotaged the Harvard email. She'd been snooping for months, reading her drafts, watching her application progress. And for what? To stay on top. To make sure Claire didn't get a life that Rachel never could. Claire didn't cry. She didn't scream. Instead, she opened a blank document and started typing. She logged every instance of digital intrusion she could find: dates, messages, screenshots. She compiled a timeline, a narrative. She gathered every shred of evidence she had and built something undeniable. And then, she sat down and wrote the most important letter of her life. It wasn't just about Harvard anymore. Claire poured her heart into the letter to the dean of admissions. She wrote about her life, her family, her fear of being punished for someone else's cruelty. She wrote about the exhaustion of being dismissed, about how hard she'd worked for every opportunity, and how easily someone tried to take it away. "I wasn't just fighting for a school," she wrote. "I was fighting for proof that I wasn't invisible." She sent it off, not knowing if it would even be read. But she had to try. Days passed. A week. Claire went through the motions of school and home like a ghost. Her only lifeline, the distant hope that someone, somewhere, was listening. Then, one afternoon, a letter arrived in the mail. Thick envelope, crimson seal. Her hands shook as she opened it. Harvard. Accepted. Claire read the words once, then again, and then a third time. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat still, completely still, letting the weight of it settle into her bones. She had survived. The part of her Rachel tried to break, that driven, relentless part, it had survived. But something else settled too, a quiet, simmering clarity. She had her future back, yes, but Rachel hadn't just tried to ruin her. She'd done it with ease, with calculation, and without consequence. Claire wasn't angry anymore, not in the way she had been. She was focused, again, like she'd been all her life. She wasn't just planning to leave. She was planning to make sure Rachel paid for what she did. Claire doesn't tell anyone she got into Harvard, not at first. The letter arrives on a quiet Thursday morning, crisp and triumphant in its deep crimson envelope. And Claire reads it alone in her room, hands trembling, heart pounding. A scream rises in her throat, but she swallows it. Not yet. Instead, she tucks the letter away beneath her mattress and walks downstairs to find Rachel, already sitting at the kitchen table, spinning lies with the ease of someone who's been practicing her whole life. Rachel claims she checked Claire's portal for her while she was out, conveniently delivering the news that Harvard had passed. "Tough break," she says, sipping orange juice like it isn't poison. "But don't worry. I know how rejection feels." She doesn't. She never applied, never even studied for the SAT. But Rachel's charisma sells the story, and Claire lets it happen for now. The days that follow feel like walking through a minefield of Rachel's ego. She starts telling their parents how she's basically the only one in the house, with college experience now, spinning a story of sisterly sacrifice, of her brilliance finally being recognized. She prints out mock resumes using Claire's test scores and extracurriculars, slaps on a few photos from Claire's debate competitions, and applies to internships she has no qualifications for. The audacity is staggering, and Claire watches it all, cool and quiet. The eye of a storm she's carefully building. Then she strikes. She doesn't just send Harvard the screen recordings and screenshots, though she does, detailing Rachel's illegal access to her portal and her attempts to impersonate her. She forwards everything to her high school guidance counselor, Ms. Patterson, a fiercely principled woman who had always pushed Claire to dream bigger than their small town. Claire even reaches out to a free legal clinic in the city, and an attorney calls her back within the day, stunned by the gravity of the evidence. The fallout is fast and brutal. Ms. Patterson launches an internal investigation, and within a week, the school confirms Rachel accessed Claire's academic records without consent, an egregious violation of FERPA laws. The college board is informed. Rachel's fabricated internship applications are flagged. And then, the real twist comes. A formal cease and desist letter is served to Rachel right in the middle of family dinner. Their parents are stunned. Forks suspended in midair as the envelope hits the table. Rachel's face goes pale. The letter is specific, damning, legal. Claire doesn't say a word as Rachel reads it, her hands shaking. When their father finally finds his voice, it cracks. "Rachel," he says, barely a whisper, "did you really do all this?" Rachel explodes. "Of course I did. She was always the favorite, always perfect. You think I didn't notice? You praised her grades, her awards, her every damn breath while I sat in the shadows." Her voice is ragged now, eyes wild with desperation. "I deserved to win once." Their mother sobs quietly into her napkin. Their father looks like he's aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Claire sits perfectly still. Then she reaches into her bag and pulls out the Harvard letter, unfolding it slowly and laying it on the table like the final card in a winning hand. "You lost," she says, her voice low and steady, "the second you thought I needed you to get in." Rachel stares at the letter, at the official seal, at her own name absent from it. Her mouth opens, then closes. Nothing comes out. Claire stands. She doesn't gloat. She doesn't smile. She simply leaves the room, the door clicking softly behind her like a period at the end of a sentence. Outside, the world feels cleaner, lighter. The storm has passed, but its mark remains. Claire knows this will follow Rachel for a long time, maybe forever. But so will Harvard. So will the truth. And, from now on, that's all Claire needs. For the first time in her life, Claire stopped apologizing for being brilliant. The need to shrink herself, to dim her light for the comfort of others, fell away like a second skin she never asked to wear. The chaos at home had reached a boiling point, culminating in a blow-up so seismic that Rachel, her older sister, was finally kicked out of the house. No more slammed doors. No more bitter jabs disguised as sisterly teasing. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. Not at first. It echoed with all the things that had been said, and all the apologies that would never come. But change moved quietly at first, then all at once. At school, Claire's story began to travel beyond the classroom. Her guidance counselor, once a quiet observer, began using Claire's journey anonymously in workshops about resilience and overcoming toxic environments. She became a kind of symbol, not by choice, but by truth. And truth, Claire had learned was power. Then came the letter from Harvard, not just of admission, but an offer to join a mentorship program specifically for first-generation college students. For the first time, she felt seen not only for her potential but also for the weight she carried to get there. That summer before Harvard, instead of taking a break, Claire poured herself into giving back. She volunteered at a local youth center, helping kids from tough neighborhoods like hers navigate college applications. She stayed late, ran mock interviews, edited essays with a red pen and kind eyes. "I wanted to be the person I didn't have," she said when someone asked why she spent so many hours there. She understood what it meant to face locked doors with no key in sight, and she was determined to hand out as many keys as she could. Back at home, her parents began therapy. Guilt clung to them like dust, soft but suffocating. They never said everything perfectly, but they tried. And that trying, slow and imperfect, mattered. Over time, Claire forgave them not because they had earned it, but because she didn't want to carry their weight anymore. She was building something new, and there was no room for old burdens. She never heard from Rachel again. No text, no apology, nothing. But by then, Claire realized she didn't need one. Healing had come without permission or validation. Rachel had tried to burn her future down, but all she had done was light the match under Claire's wings. And Claire, she soared. For the first time in her life, Claire stopped apologizing for being brilliant. The need to shrink herself, to dim her light for the comfort of others, fell away like a second skin she never asked to wear. The chaos at home had reached a boiling point, culminating in a blow-up so seismic that Rachel, her older sister, was finally kicked out of the house. No more slammed doors. No more bitter jabs disguised as sisterly teasing. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. Not at first. It echoed with all the things that had been said, and all the apologies that would never come. But change moved quietly at first, then all at once. At school, Claire's story began to travel beyond the classroom. Her guidance counselor, once a quiet observer, began using Claire's journey anonymously in workshops about resilience and overcoming toxic environments. She became a kind of symbol, not by choice, but by truth. And truth, Claire had learned, was power. Then came the letter from Harvard, not just of admission, but an offer to join a mentorship program specifically for first-generation college students. For the first time, she felt seen not only for her potential but also for the weight she carried to get there. That summer before Harvard, instead of taking a break, Claire poured herself into giving back. She volunteered at a local youth center, helping kids from tough neighborhoods like hers navigate college applications. She stayed late, ran mock interviews, edited essays with a red pen and kind eyes. "I wanted to be the person I didn't have," she said when someone asked why she spent so many hours there. She understood what it meant to face locked doors with no key in sight, and she was determined to hand out as many keys as she could. Back at home, her parents began therapy. Guilt clung to them like dust, soft but suffocating. They never said everything perfectly, but they tried. And that trying, slow and imperfect, mattered. Over time, Claire forgave them not because they had earned it, but because she didn't want to carry their weight anymore. She was building something new, and there was no room for old burdens. She never heard from Rachel again. No text, no apology, nothing. But by then, Claire realized she didn't need one. Healing had come without permission or validation. Rachel had tried to burn her future down, But all she had done was light the match under Claire's wings. And Claire, she soared. Claire doesn't think about her often. The memories of Rachel come like faint shadows, never sharp, never welcome, but never entirely gone. Sometimes, though, in the quiet corners of the Harvard Library, when she opens a fresh notebook and the page is blank and full of promise, she remembers, not with anger, not even with pain, just a trace of what was. The weight of the past doesn't crush her anymore. It hums quietly beneath the surface, a reminder of how far she's come. Outside, the Harvard yard glows with autumn. The leaves crunch beneath her boots, golden and crisp, and she walks through it not as the scared girl who once cried over a deleted email, but as someone who knows exactly who she is. The panic that used to live in her chest has been replaced with something stronger. Clarity, peace, purpose. She still hears whispers of the old pain, but they no longer define her. Revenge didn't heal her, it never could, but it cracked something open, forced her to face the truth. She had never been weak to begin with, not when she stayed up late to study while tuning out the yelling downstairs, not when she applied to colleges in secret. Not even when her world tilted under the weight of betrayal. Now, she moves forward without looking back. She writes papers, laughs in dorm rooms, and mentors students just like she once was. Her story is no longer one of survival alone, but of reclamation. The scars remain, but they no longer sting. Her sister deleted the email, but not her future. Claire rewrote it in ink she'll never erase.